Indiana Fever Kelsey Mitchell has broken her silence about last night's game, but she wasn't the only one. Caitlin Clark had some things to say too.
Kelsey Mitchell's name usually screams highlight reels, clutch shots, and absolutely fearless play on the court. But get this time it wasn't her scoring that had the WNBA buzzing. Instead, it was a shocking, deeply personal revelation about her own body, a total breakdown right in the middle of a critical playoff run. In a stunning, raw statement, Mitchell finally opened up about the terrifying moment her muscles completely shut down, leaving her paralyzed and unable to move for several agonizing seconds.
Kelsey Mitchell suffered from a rhabdomyolysis, a rare muscle injury, on Tuesday. Basically, from what I heard in the little research I did, I can't really pronounce the word too good, but you suffer from this type of injury when your body shuts down. And treatment includes IV and PT. The Cleveland Clinic says most recovery from rhabdo, but can have lingering muscle weakness for a few weeks. More on the conditions.
Fans watched in disbelief as one of the Indiana Fever's most reliable stars suddenly collapsed, but trust me, no one knew the full story until Mitchell herself spoke out. Her words didn't just expose the brutal physical toll of the season, they completely reignited a fiery controversy about how the Fever have been managing their players. So was this just some terrible bad luck? Or did the team system push Mitchell way past her breaking point? And what in the world does this all mean for Caitlin Clark and the entire future of the Fever?
Skip Bayless stated this earlier. He stated, if Caitlin was out since July 15th, had returned for the playoffs, the Fever would be in the finals. Not only would the Fever be in the finals, I believe the Fever will win the damn final.
It was supposed to be a defining night for the Indiana Fever, a game absolutely loaded with the weight of a playoff run and the hopes of a fan base starving for success. The energy inside that arena was electric, and every single possession felt like it could completely tilt the balance of the series. But here's the plot twist. What nobody, and I mean nobody, expected was that this night would be remembered not for some huge shot or a game-winning play, but for a terrifying collapse that left everyone absolutely stunned.
We know a lot of these players has been suffering major catastrophic injuries, and I believe it stimulates from Stephanie White and the way she run her defense. Granted, the Indiana Fever kick ass on defense a bunch.
Kelsey Mitchell, one of the Fever's most dependable stars, suddenly found herself at the center of a medical scare that exposed just how fragile even the strongest athletes can truly be. Midway through the intense action, Mitchell's body simply gave out. Viewers who tuned in saw her frantically grab a referee's arm for support, her legs completely refusing to cooperate as raw panic flashed across her face. In real time, the moment looked incredibly confusing. Was it just a cramp, an awkward fall, or something far, far worse?
Kelsey Mitchell put a message out for the fans. This is what she stated to the Fever fans and fans of Kelsey Hoops. Me letting you all know about my health is just me showing love and respect to those who showed it for me. I suffered from something called, I'm going to just say Rambo. Last night, my muscles stopped producing and reached its maximum capacity. Her body shut down.
Teammates rushed to her side, and the entire crowd instantly grew silent, completely unsure of what had just happened. For a few harrowing seconds, Mitchell couldn't move her lower body at all. Those closest to the court described it as an almost surreal scene, the type of collapse that just sends a chill down the spine of anyone watching. At first, the reaction was totally mixed. Some fans believed it was just exhaustion catching up after a grueling season, while others honestly feared the worst, a major injury that could sideline Mitchell long-term.
A stretcher was brought out to the court for Kelsey Mitchell late in the third quarter. Fortunately, she was able to get up on her own will. She wasn't able to walk off. She actually had to be carried off the court. It was like a strange situation. She just fell to the floor.
But here's what almost nobody realized in that moment. Her body had actually reached its absolute breaking point. Later, Mitchell would reveal that her muscles had essentially shut down, leaving her numb and paralyzed for several seconds. Let me be clear, this wasn't just fatigue, it was her body sending the ultimate terrifying warning sign. This was so much more than just a scary in-game moment. It highlighted the immense pressure players are under in the playoffs, where defensive intensity ratchets up and coaches demand every ounce of effort on both ends of the floor. Mitchell had been pushed right to her limits, and the physical toll became undeniable in front of a national audience.
No other team in the league has suffered injuries like this team. They're literally their whole damn starting half of their team, more than half the team.
This entire incident forced everyone, from casual fans to expert analysts to her own teammates, to seriously reconsider what had really been happening behind the scenes in Indiana. The eerie silence inside the arena when Mitchell went down told the full story. For those few moments, it didn't matter who was winning or losing. It didn't matter what the scoreboard said. What truly mattered was whether Kelsey Mitchell would be able to get back up, walk off the floor, and continue the incredible career she had fought so hard to build. And when she finally did rise, it was a massive relief, but it was crystal clear that something was seriously wrong. The Fever might have continued to play, but the game itself no longer felt the same. Everyone watching knew this wasn't just a small setback, this was a turning point, and as shocking as the sight of Mitchell's collapse was, what she would reveal afterward would prove to be even more stunning.
I blame this shit on Stephanie White and the front office. The injuries and the reason why Caitlin's not playing. Because this is just my theory. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. I believe that's the mentality that the front office had. Alexa with ESPN just stated Indiana Fever guard Kelsey Mitchell has been ruled out for the remainder of the game.
When the dust finally settled after that frightening scene on the court, fans were desperate for answers. What exactly had happened to Kelsey Mitchell? At first glance, it genuinely looked like a cramp or simple fatigue, but the truth, my friends, turned out to be far more unusual and alarming. In her own words, Mitchell revealed she had suffered from a rare muscular condition that caused her body to essentially shut down mid-game. Her muscles stopped producing proper blood flow, leaving her paralyzed for several crucial seconds. This was not your standard sprain, strain, or cramp. This was something much more severe. The medical term is a mouthful, but basically, it's a rare condition where overexertion forces the body beyond its limits, shutting down muscle function, and get this, flooding the bloodstream with toxin. Now, fans might have dismissed the collapse as just another injury scare, but doctors were quick to point out just how dangerous this could have been. Left untreated, it can lead to long-term muscle damage and lingering weakness that can last for weeks. In Mitchell's case, it was a terrifying warning sign that her body had reached its absolute maximum capacity. The detail that really stunned everyone was her description of the event. She admitted she felt numbness and paralysis in her legs, a loss of movement that lasted between 5 and 7 seconds. For a professional athlete in the middle of a playoff battle, that kind of physical betrayal isn't just frightening, it's genuinely career-threatening. Mitchell herself confessed to panicking in the moment, believing the absolute worst as she realized her body simply would not respond. To make matters even worse, she wasn't immediately aware of what was happening. It wasn't until later, under medical evaluation, that the condition was finally identified. Treatment for this type of muscle shutdown isn't as simple as just rest or ice. It requires IV fluids, intensive physical therapy, and close monitoring by medical professionals. Recovery timelines vary, but even with the best care, athletes can still experience lingering weakness. For Mitchell, the ordeal was far more than just physical. It shook her confidence to the core and forced her to confront the brutal reality that even elite athletes are not immune to the limits of the human body. The WNBA has seen its share of injuries, but this one struck a different nerve entirely. It wasn't the result of contact or a dirty foul. It wasn't something that could be blamed on bad luck or poor conditioning. No, this was a breakdown brought on by relentless pressure and the demands of an unforgiving schedule. Fans were left questioning whether Mitchell had been pushed too hard by her team and whether the Fever's style of play actually contributed to the collapse. Her honesty about the injuries absolutely stunned the league, because players rarely reveal so much about their physical struggles in real time. Mitchell didn't just confirm she was hurt, she pulled back the curtain on the kind of silent suffering athletes endure just to keep competing. And while the explanation provided some relief, it also sparked a much bigger question. Why did it take a terrifying medical scare for everyone to finally notice how much she had been pushed past her limit? As the truth about Kelsey Mitchell's injury finally came to light, a brand new debate quickly surfaced. Was this just an unfortunate medical anomaly, or did the Fever's intense style of play actually push her body past its breaking point? Many players and analysts immediately pointed to the relentless defensive schemes the team had been running all season. In short, Indiana's defense wasn't just aggressive, it was absolutely punishing, and Mitchell, it turns out, may have been the one who paid the highest price. Fans who watched closely noticed this problem long before Mitchell ever went down. Fever guards were being asked to pressure opponents far beyond the three-point line, even on players who were, frankly, not reliable shooters. This left Indiana scrambling, overexerting, and constantly chasing matchups that simply didn't make sense. Clips from the playoff series revealed countless instances where players like Jordan Canada, a career 25% shooter from three, were being guarded like elite sharpshooters. And guess who was often one of the players thrown into these exhausting matchups? Mitchell. This type of defensive overcommitment might look like pure effort and grit on the surface, but in reality, it drained energy reserves at an incredibly dangerous rate. A grueling schedule combined with defensive demands that pushed players into awkward high-intensity situations meant there was absolutely no room for recovery. For Mitchell, who had carried an incredibly heavy workload throughout the season, her body eventually just rebelled. Her rare muscle shutdown was not just random bad luck, it may have been the completely predictable outcome of an unsustainable game plan. To put it into perspective, NBA fans often talk about how stars like Steph Curry are never matched up defensively with players like Dennis Rodman, right? Because the physical toll would be absurd. Yet, that was essentially what Indiana was asking its players to do, defend at levels far beyond logic, regardless of the opponent's strengths. Over time, this didn't just put the Fever at a strategic disadvantage, it also risked the health of their most important players. And get this, even within the locker room, frustrations apparently began to simmer. Some players quietly questioned the adjustments, or the lack thereof, as they watched their teammates wear down. Mitchell's collapse became a powerful symbol of those very concerns, a flashing red light that perhaps the team's defensive philosophy wasn't just ineffective, but actually dangerous. It was one thing to lose a game because of poor strategy, it was another to lose a star because her body had been run into the ground by that very strategy. The timing of the injury made the controversy even sharper. This wasn't preseason or some meaningless regular season matchup. This was the postseason when every second mattered and every single decision was magnified. For fans, it honestly felt like the Fever had gambled with their players' health and Mitchell was the one who ultimately lost. But here's what stung even more, the realization that this defensive chaos might have cost the Fever more than just Mitchell. Because while she fought through that collapse, there was an even bigger story lurking in the shadows. The mysterious absence of Caitlin Clark and the haunting what-if scenario that continues to divide Fever fans to this very day. As Kelsey Mitchell's frightening collapse replayed across highlight reels and news segments, another name kept surfacing, loud and clear in the conversation: Caitlin Clark. The Fever's rookie sensation had been sidelined since mid-July with what was officially described as a groin injury. The team officially said she needed time to heal and that protecting her long-term future mattered more than pushing her back for a playoff run. But let me tell you, many fans and analysts simply weren't buying it. They believed Clark was absolutely ready to play and that the Fever had robbed themselves and her of a genuine championship shot. Skip Bayless, for example, echoed that sentiment on air, stating flatly that if Clark had been healthy, the Fever wouldn't just be in the finals, they'd have already won them. It was a bold take, but not one without serious merit. The Fever had battled fiercely through Minnesota and Phoenix and were slugging it out with Las Vegas. With Clark's unbelievable shooting, masterful playmaking, and competitive fire, many believed Indiana would have completely overwhelmed their opponents and closed out the series early. That what-if became even louder after Mitchell's bombshell statement. Fans openly asked, if Clark was truly good to go, why in the world was she sitting while her teammates were breaking down under the weight of the system? Mitchell's injury symbolized the brutal cost of overexertion, while Clark's absence, for many, symbolized wasted potential. Together, they painted a troubling picture of a franchise that seemed to be actively working against itself. Think about it. Clark herself had never missed significant time at Iowa. She played through nagging injuries, carried her team deep into March Madness, and never ever showed signs of fragility. Yet, in the pros, the Fever's decision-making around her suddenly turned incredibly cautious, almost paranoid. Some fans saw it as outright selfish management, thinking only about protecting an asset instead of seizing the golden opportunity right in front of them. Others worried that Clark was being treated differently, perhaps held back to avoid overshadowing veterans, or even sidelined to manipulate the balance of power within the league. For Kelsey Mitchell, the timing couldn't have been worse. She gave absolutely everything on the floor until her body literally shut down, while Clark, the team's brightest star and biggest draw, sat mysteriously on the sideline. This stark contrast fueled a powerful narrative. The Fever mishandled both players. They overworked one to the point of collapse and overprotected the other to the point of inaction, leaving the team caught squarely in the middle of failure and controversy. The harshest critics didn't hesitate to compare Clark to legendary players who never won a championship: Charles Barkley, Carmelo Anthony, Allen Iverson. The fear was that history might brutally repeat itself if the Fever continued to prioritize caution over sheer competition. Mitchell's collapse gave fans a haunting glimpse of what could happen when the organization gets it fundamentally wrong. Clark's absence reminded them of what they could be losing if it continued, and as much as fans worried about Mitchell's recovery, they worried just as much, if not more, about Clark's future. Could she truly trust this franchise to put winning first, or would the Fever's choices push her to question whether she could ever achieve her ultimate goal in Indiana? Those questions, my friends, grew louder with every passing day, and they absolutely set the stage for even more fire aimed directly at the Fever's front office. By the time the dust finally began to settle on both Kelsey Mitchell's frightening collapse and Caitlin Clark's mysterious absence, one name kept landing squarely in the crosshairs: the Indiana Fever's front office. Fans, analysts, and even former players began pointing fingers, accusing management of making decisions that not only cost them a playoff run, but also put their stars at completely unnecessary risk. This wasn't just bad luck to many, it looked like gross mismanagement. The anger, let's be honest, started with the questionable handling of Clark. The official story was that she was being protected for the future, but critics vehemently argued that championships don't wait. They believed the Fever had a golden, once-in-a-lifetime opportunity sitting right in front of them, and they let it tragically slip away. Clark's groin injury had been reported back in mid-July, and by all accounts, she was progressing well. Some even speculated she was ready to return for the playoffs, yet the organization chose to hold her back. That choice, according to an overwhelming number of fans, was nothing short of selfish. On the other side was Mitchell, a player who had been pushed right to the brink. Instead of being protected, she was overworked, her body literally breaking down as she tried to cover for Clark's absence. This created a deeply troubling contrast. One star held back too tightly, another pushed far past her limits, and the brutal truth? Both approaches backfired spectacularly. For a franchise that had already been under intense scrutiny for years of mediocrity, this was the breaking point. The outrage wasn't limited to just fans. Powerful media voices like Skip Bayless didn't hesitate to call out the organization, stating flatly that if Clark had been allowed to play, Indiana would already have clinched the finals. Others took it even further, accusing the Fever of actively sabotaging their own shot at glory. After all, a long Clark career means consistent ticket sales and national attention for years, but a championship run in her rookie season, that would have been historic, unprecedented, and the Fever, to the shock of many, let it simply vanish. The comparisons started flooding in again. Charles Barkley, Carmelo Anthony, Allen Iverson, legendary talents who never won it all. Could Clark join that heartbreaking list because of an organization too hesitant to gamble on greatness? That fear gnawed at fans who saw in Mitchell's injury a chilling metaphor. If this is how the Fever handled their stars, how long before Clark herself begins questioning her future in Indiana? The front office, meanwhile, remained mostly silent, a move that only fueled more speculation and frustration. Transparency could have easily eased tensions, but instead, their silence gave the powerful impression that they were actively dodging accountability. To the public, it looked like they gambled with the health of one player while caging the other, and the entire season consequently collapsed because of it. For Kelsey Mitchell, her bombshell statement didn't just reveal her personal struggle, it unintentionally shined a harsh spotlight on everything wrong with Indiana's leadership. And as the criticism relentlessly built, fans loudly demanded answers. The question wasn't just how Mitchell would recover, it was whether the Fever's leadership could possibly recover from the intense backlash that was now consuming them. When Kelsey Mitchell finally broke her silence, the entire WNBA world absolutely stopped to listen. Fans had speculated, reporters had theorized, but nothing, and I mean nothing, compared to hearing it directly from her. In a heartfelt and raw statement, Mitchell described the moment her body completely betrayed her, and the details were honestly more terrifying than anyone had imagined. She revealed that her muscles had literally stopped producing, leaving her in a state of paralysis that lasted between 5 and 7 excruciating seconds. For a professional athlete, 5 seconds can feel like an eternity. In her words, it was an out-of-body experience, one that left her panicking, fearing the absolute worst. Mitchell described how she desperately grabbed the arm of a referee during the collapse, not out of instinct to complain, but because she literally couldn't move her own legs. That image alone of a powerful player reaching for help, frozen in shock and fear, immediately hit fans with the stark reality of just how serious this was. This wasn't just a cramp, and it certainly wasn't an exaggeration. Her body had fundamentally shut down in the middle of intense competition. She went on to share that in the moment, she felt a wave of numbness sweep over her lower body, followed by intense fatigue and cramping once movement finally returned. It was a sensation she had never felt before, and she admitted openly that she panicked, thinking that something permanent might have just happened. For an athlete who prides herself on incredible toughness and resilience, admitting that level of fear showed just how close this injury came to changing absolutely everything. But beyond the frightening details, Mitchell's message also carried a profound sense of gratitude. She thanked God for covering her in that moment, crediting her faith for getting her through the scariest seconds of her career. She also gave thanks to the Fever medical staff, the opposing team's trainers, and the hospital staff who treated her so quickly. Despite her pain, she made it abundantly clear she wasn't bitter. Instead, she was incredibly grateful to be alive, walking, and able to continue her recovery. Her words connected so deeply with fans because they weren't filtered through sterile press releases or carefully crafted team statements. They came directly from her, full of raw emotion, piercing honesty, and undeniable humanity. Mitchell made it explicitly clear that she played until her wheels fell off, acknowledging the immense sacrifices she made throughout the season for her team. That line alone resonated deeply with supporters who had seen her pour every ounce of herself into the game, only for her body to finally give out under the relentless pressure. The response was immediate. Fans flooded social media with messages of unwavering support, prayers, and profound respect for Mitchell's courage in speaking so openly. But here's the kicker. Her message also had another, perhaps unintended effect. It completely reignited the urgent conversation about how the Fever had handled their players. Because if Mitchell's body shut down from pure overexertion, who was really at fault here? The player who gave it all, or the system that relentlessly demanded too much? Her statement wasn't just a medical update, it was a bombshell. And while it earned her widespread admiration, it also placed even more intense heat on the Fever's leadership, forcing everyone to critically wonder if the organization's decisions were literally driving their stars into the ground. The very moment Kelsey Mitchell's statement hit social media, the entire WNBA community absolutely erupted. What had initially seemed like a mysterious mid-game collapse was now revealed as something far more serious, and fans quickly realized the full heavy weight of her words. The sympathy was immediate and widespread. Supporters from across the league, even rival fan bases, rallied behind her with messages of heartfelt encouragement, prayers, and praise for her incredible courage. But alongside that wave of sympathy came an undeniable storm of outrage, directed straight at the Indiana Fever organization. On Twitter, Instagram, and fan forums everywhere, the reaction was sharp and cutting. Many praised Mitchell for her honesty, saying she showed more transparency in one single message than the Fever organization had displayed all season. Others vehemently criticized the team for putting her in that brutal position to begin with. Fans argued that she had been pushed far too hard, asked to cover too much ground on defense, and forced to shoulder responsibilities that were simply unsustainable in the long run. For them, Mitchell's collapse wasn't just a freak accident, it was the entirely predictable result of gross mismanagement. The criticism didn't stop with fans. Commentators and analysts also weighed in, pointing out that Mitchell's bombshell statement added yet another damning layer to the growing list of serious questions about the Fever's decision-making. Why was Caitlin Clark held back if she was healthy enough to play? Why were the defensive schemes so extreme that they risked the health of players like Mitchell? And why did it take a medical scare for the real truth to finally come out? The deafening silence from the front office only made things worse, fueling rampant speculation that leadership had completely lost touch with the reality of what was happening on the court. At the same time, Mitchell's message humanized the players in a way fans rarely get to see. She wasn't just an athlete, she was a person who had faced a truly terrifying health scare in front of thousands of people. She openly admitted to fear, to panic, to thinking the worst when her legs simply wouldn't move. That raw vulnerability resonated deeply with fans, powerfully reminding them of the immense risks these women bravely take every single time they step on the floor. Still, the reactions weren't universally supportive. A smaller group of critics questioned whether Mitchell should have shared so much detail publicly, suggesting it might give opponents an unfair advantage or unfairly paint her as fragile. But thankfully, those voices were quickly drowned out by the overwhelming tide of support and respect. The fallout also reignited intense debates about the direction of the entire franchise. Fever fans have endured years of painful rebuilding, false starts, and consistently disappointing results. Now, with both Mitchell's shocking health scare and Clark's controversial absence, many wondered if the organization could truly be trusted to protect its stars and lead them to championships. Season ticket holders, longtime supporters, and even casual fans began openly asking whether change at the very top was absolutely necessary to ensure Indiana didn't tragically waste the prime years of its best player. Kelsey Mitchell's bombshell didn't just shake the WNBA, it forced the Fever's own supporters to confront a painful, uncomfortable truth. The problem might not just be injuries or bad luck. The problem, my friends, might be leadership itself, and that right there set the stage for the most difficult questions yet about the team's entire future. With the shock of Kelsey Mitchell's collapse still incredibly fresh and her bombshell statement echoing across the league, the natural question became, what comes next? For Mitchell, the immediate focus is, of course, recovery. Doctors have meticulously outlined a treatment plan involving IV fluids, intensive physical therapy, and closely monitored rest to ensure her muscles regain full strength. She has already reassured fans that she is walking again, albeit at a slower pace, and confidently expects to return in due time. But the uncertainty remains. How long will it truly take before she is fully herself again? And will the lingering effects of her condition tragically hold her back when she finally steps back onto the floor? For the Fever, the implications are even more complicated, almost a tangled mess. Mitchell's injury has placed an undeniable spotlight on the organization's entire approach to player health, game strategy, and long-term planning. Fans and media are now loudly demanding accountability, questioning whether the coaching staff and front office have genuinely prioritized their stars' well-being. The stark contrast between Mitchell's collapse from brutal overexertion and Caitlin Clark's controversial absence has left the team caught in a furious storm of criticism. This isn't just about one game or even one season, it's about whether Indiana can actually be trusted to build a sustainable and successful future for its incredibly valuable players. And the bigger, scarier question hangs over Clark's head. If the Fever continue to mishandle situations like these, will she remain loyal to the franchise? Clark isn't just a talented player, she is a once-in-a-generation star who holds the power to shape the WNBA's future for years to come. The organization's ability to protect her, support her, and put her in a position to win will directly determine whether she thrives in Indiana or, well, begins to look elsewhere down the road. Mitchell's injury has now become a critical case study in what happens when that delicate balance is severely mishandled. Meanwhile, for Mitchell herself, her brave words have created a powerful legacy far beyond basket. By speaking so openly and honestly about her terrifying experience, she has shed invaluable light on the hidden physical and emotional battles athletes endure behind the scenes. Her raw honesty turned a private medical scare into a profound public conversation about health, resilience, and unimaginable sacrifice. Fans will remember not just her incredible shooting and scoring, but her sheer bravery in pulling back the curtain when she absolutely didn't have to. Looking ahead, the Fever season may be officially over, but their biggest challenges are, believe me, just beginning. Can they possibly rebuild trust with their passionate fan base after a season marred by such intense controversy and heartbreak? Can they genuinely prove to both Mitchell and Clark that their futures are safe, respected, and valued in Indiana? Or will this pivotal moment ultimately be remembered as the turning point where the Fever's leadership utterly failed to rise to the occasion? Kelsey Mitchell's stunning statement left the WNBA rattled to its core, but it also left behind an uncomfortable, undeniable truth. Championships aren't just lost on the scoreboard, they're lost in critical decisions made behind the scenes, in how teams handle their most precious stars, and crucially, in whether players feel valued enough to keep giving their absolute all. For Mitchell and the Fever, the next chapter will definitively decide if this collapse was a painful but necessary lesson, or the tragic beginning of something even more damaging. Kelsey Mitchell's stunning statement was way more than just a personal update. It was a blaring wake-up call for the entire WNBA. Her frightening collapse on the court starkly revealed how quickly even an elite athlete's body can completely give out when pushed beyond its absolute limits. But what's even crazier, it also exposed deeper, unsettling issues inside the Indiana Fever. The stark contrast between Mitchell playing until her body literally shut down, and Caitlin Clark being held back despite appearing absolutely ready, fueled massive outrage and raised serious questions about the franchise's leadership. Fans were left wondering if the Fever had actually sacrificed a championship opportunity out of pure fear and incredibly poor planning. Mitchell's honesty in one powerful swoop gave the league a raw, unfiltered glimpse into the brutal physical and emotional toll of the game, while powerfully reminding everyone that these athletes aren't just stars, they are, at their core, human beings. Now, the spotlight shifts intensely to Indiana's front office. Can they possibly regain trust and protect their future, or has this bombshell permanently changed the Fever's trajectory forever?